So this is talking about my procedure that I developed. This is called asserting sovereignty. How do you assert it? What we'll learn today, who you are. We've kind of started that a little bit. Now you have to understand that, again, a lot of this stuff is kind of abstract, and so you have to think about it, and it'll come to you over time. It's a good idea to probably get a copy of the DVD so you can watch the presentation again, because then you'll have you can review it, you know. You'll learn how to assert your rights. You'll learn about a procedure to build a case against our public servants that will stand up in court. They will know exactly what you're doing, okay? There's a friend of mine in, one guy I met up in Canada, and his dad was a cop. And he said until he saw my presentation, he said he never realized, but he said his dad used to sit at the kitchen table with his buddies and build cases against people. So that's what we're doing. And they'll know that's what you're doing. And hopefully they do know. Because quite frankly, I just assume they honored their oath. You know? I just assume that I don't have to go after them. But if I do, I'm going to lay the foundation so I can, and it'll be their absolute worst nightmare. And that's what I tell them. Go ahead, if you're going to be a criminal, go ahead and take me over there and blow my brains out, because if you don't, you're going to wish you did, and I'll do it all within the law. And so I want them to know that that's exactly what I'm doing. There are three kinds of unhappy men. This is Koch's maxims. Okay, Sir Edward Koch, remember? He that hath knowledge and teacheth not. He that teacheth and liveth not thereafter. I guess if you teach something and get killed or something like that, that could be a problem. He that knoweth not and doth not inquire to understand. Yeah, well, that's certainly an interesting situation. I've been studying law for over 20 years. Someone told me about the two classes of citizens in the 1990s, in the early 1990s, and I told them they're crazy. I said, you're nuts. You don't know what you're talking about. Then they produced some court cases, and I thought, if this is true, this is just the most fantastic thing there is. And so, you know, I travel all over the place, and everywhere I went, I ran into people, and I talked to people, and I picked up a lot of stuff over the years. And a lot of the stuff you're seeing here today is stuff that, but it was really, and we'll go into this. In the mid-1990s, I was in Toronto working on a contract for Bombardier on a contract, and I met a guy by the name of Patrick Ellis. And Patrick Ellis taught me about court procedure and how to file a lawsuit. And when I was in Ontario, I filed actually 3 lawsuits, and 2 of them went to the Court of Appeals. I filed several lawsuits in Ontario. I've been to the Ontario Court of Appeals twice. I've filed numerous lawsuits in the U.S. I've taken them to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 9th Circuit, the 5th Circuit, the 2nd Circuit, and the D.C. Circuit. I've taken 2 cases to the U.S. Supreme Court. I'm currently in the U.S. Supreme Court. In 2004, it was recommended to me to get some of Rice McLeod's material. Rice McLeod was the Attorney General for the Republic of Texas. Rice McLeod had a very down-to-earth way of explaining the law. Rice McLeod really helped me to see what was going on, and it really helped me to just put it all together, because I knew about the 2 classes, but I just didn't get it, you know, how all the rest of it was coming into play. In 2006, I moved to Texas, and I got involved in the Republic of Texas. I was elected to Congress. I don't know if you remember Jerry Lahr. He suggested I might want to run for Congress, so I did. And then once I went to the first meeting, Jerry suggested I might want to run for Speaker. And so I did, and I got elected for Speaker. And the Congress of the Republic of Texas elected me Speaker. I was Speaker of the House of Representatives for the Republic of Texas for 1.5 years before I had to leave Texas on a contract for New York. And I was in New York for about the last 1.5 years, and then in Canada for about 6 months. Over the years, I've learned that we're under martial law, or all courts are corporate commercial courts in business to make a profit. All courts are banks and leverage the filing fees. All judges and prosecutors are getting royalties from every case they hear. There is no real justice in the courts. They will slap whoever violated your rights, but it will be behind the scenes. The best way to deal with our public servants is administratively. Over the years, I've learned that there's no de jure government operating on the planet except for the Republic of Texas. Almost all laws are color of law. All countries are under martial law, and they've been set up, everybody, for slavery. Do you want to be a slave? Is there a price for your freedom that you're not prepared to pay? Something you got to think about. At what point are you willing to draw the line? And you can't fight every battle. You know, that's one thing I tell people is you can't fight every battle. There's too many of them. And that's why I do this, because I need help. I mean, we can actually, we can assert our sovereignty again and all become sovereigns, but it takes more than me, okay? I can be a sovereign, but I need help, you know? And so that's why I tell people. The burden is on you to assert your rights. If you do not assert your rights, you lose them. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. That's the bottom line. Because we're under martial law, the courts presume everything. Presumption, remember, it's all color of law. If you go on the attack, you can defeat their presumptions. If this procedure is followed properly, the system will deal with any criminals that are exposed. Okay? Again, you lay the foundation and to the point that they don't want to talk to you no more. And that's what you want to do. Because we're under martial law, if you're already under attack, it becomes very difficult to deal with. It gets more difficult the further along you are in a process. There's a maxim of common law that says that if you have an argument that's material to your case, and if you don't plead it at the proper time, you lose that opportunity. It's gone forever, okay, in that case. So sometimes it's best just to get the issue resolved and then start laying your foundation, okay? Just get the thing resolved. Because you know, it depends on how belligerent you want to be. You can still do it. Chances are they'll still convict their straw man. Yes, did you have something?
I'll wait.
Okay. It's much easier if you attack them before they ever see you. Much, much easier. You got to go on the attack, okay? All of this stuff, their presumptions are based on information we provided. It's our own fault, okay? Our parents went out and got that birth certificate. We went out and got that social security number. We went out and got that driver's license and all the rest of that stuff. And so it's our own fault. So we have to correct the record. They've been good teachers for me because I do to them what they do to me. I grind them through my system. I presume they're guilty and make them prove they're not. Yeah, oh yeah. Oh, I have fun with it, quite frankly. I started out by filing commercial liens in 2005. I filed a $15 million commercial lien against the IRS and all the deputy commissioners, and Mark Everson resigned. He was the commissioner at the time. I remember George Bush had him on the White House lawn, and he said, "It's the toughest job in the country." Yeah, so I filed a $500 million commercial lien against J.P. Morgan Chase Bank and all of their executive officers. That's about 35 people. I filed a $500 million commercial lien against Wilshire Credit Corporation, all of their executive officers. That's about 5. I filed a $1 billion commercial lien against a law firm in Phoenix and all of their executive officers. I filed a $15 million commercial lien against Capital One Bank and all of their executive officers. I sent numerous invoices to the U.S., and they owe me approximately $2 billion. The reason I'm telling you all this, I believe commercial liens work and are valid. You know, I go into court and I say, I got this commercial lien. It's like they don't want to talk about that. It's like, don't even go there. They don't want to talk about it. Those things are valid. That's why they don't want to talk about it. I'm telling you, if it was a bogus, if it was a fraud, they'd be saying, oh, that's a bunch of garbage. You know what I mean? But they don't want to talk about it. They never, ever go there. It's like the stuff with sovereignty. When you bring that up, they never, ever go there. Anyways, the reason I'm telling you this is I believe they work and are valid, but you're operating in their system and they are thieves. There's no honor among thieves. I started filing criminal complaints and I saw much better results. And the ones that I was filing were defective in a lot of ways compared to the ones I do today. I mean, I've really learned a lot of things, and my criminal complaints today, and I'll tell you, that's why I got the Pennsylvania Attorney General removed. And so I've filed hundreds of notice and demands and dozens of criminal complaints. And most of my criminal complaints can be seen at Pinal County Recorder's website. You go there and do a search, you'll find hundreds of documents that I've filed. After filing criminal complaints, I've seen numerous people resigned or removed. 2 U.S. attorneys for Arizona, 2 U.S. attorneys for Texas, U.S. Attorney General, IRS Commissioner Mark Everson, Alberta Attorney General, now Alberta Premier, okay? I filed, and a second Alberta Attorney General, I filed a criminal complaint, this lawsuit. They dismissed my lawsuit. And so I sent my latest notice and demand to the Alberta Attorney General, and I went through and I systematically showed how they perjured their oath of office by getting that thing dismissed. And now the Alberta Attorney General's gone, and the Premier has announced that he's not running for re-election. So I'm telling you, we have good, honorable servants. Again, if you don't complain, you know, in the Nazi war trials after the Second World War, okay, they got Goering in there, and they said to him, under what authority did you do what you're doing? And you know what he said? He said, nobody complained. Okay? This is the power of what I'm doing. I'm complaining. They have to do something about it, because otherwise it makes them worse than those Nazi war criminals that got hung. Okay? They have to do something about it. And so I can't tell you how many people I've had removed. I've seen positive results in Ontario after filing a lawsuit. You know, in Ontario, I filed a lawsuit over social insurance numbers, called in Canada. And it was basically, I was told I had to get one. And I put that in this lawsuit. And within weeks, they announced on national TV that nobody is mandatory, nobody has to get a social insurance number. And what they did is they, even today, there's a guy that I know that was telling me how he used reverse psychology on CRA, which is Canada Revenue Agency, okay? And he went and called them up and said, my son thinks he doesn't have to get a social security number. Would you tell him the statute that requires him to get a social security number, or social insurance number, I'm sorry, okay? My son thinks he doesn't have to get a social insurance number. Would you tell me what statute it is that says that he has to get one? And they said, sure, no problem, let me do some research and I'll get back with you. And they called him up the next day and they said, you know what? He doesn't have to get a social insurance number. And then they said, well, can you tell his employer that? And they said, sure. And so they had the employer call CRA up, and CRA told him there's no requirement for him to get a social insurance number. He doesn't have to have one. And by definition, if you think about it, you're a non-taxpayer when that happens. And I believe it was because I filed that lawsuit and put that in place. And so, you know, we really do have good and honorable people working for us. Again, it's up to us to complain. Okay? We got to bring up the issue. If you don't bring up the issue, then, you know, whose fault is it? You know, we go and give them all this evidence that we're a slave, and then we refuse to complain about it. So I guess you like being a slave. You know, I don't know, that's my attitude. So again, it comes, the burden's on us to correct the situation. It's up to we the people. So then this happened, 2 lawsuits in Canada, U.S. attorneys removed. In Arizona, I filed criminal complaints. I don't know if you remember way back when. How much longer we got, Larry? 2 minutes? Okay. Way back when, I went and, remember when the Democrats were stirring up all that ruckus when George Bush removed a bunch of U.S. attorneys that were Democrats? Well, there was one of them by the name of Paul Clements. No, not Paul Clements. Paul Charlton in Phoenix that was a Republican. They didn't complain about him. I had just filed a criminal complaint against him, and they eased him out of it. And 2 U.S. attorneys in Arizona, 2 U.S. attorneys in Texas. What happened is I filed criminal complaints. I went and filed a criminal complaint against Wells Fargo Bank because they were